Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex and managing partner of Ruane Attorneys in Connecticut. And over there, my man down in wherever he is, he travels so much, I never know where he's
I'm in DC today.
Oh, you're in DC. Well, that's why we got these cool backdrops, because you can be anywhere. Hey, it's my man, Seth Price. Seth, of course, the grand poobah of all things digital marketing for lawyers with Blue Shark Digital, as well as managing partner of Price Benowitz, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina. So, Seth, as always, how's your week going this week?
Week is going great, and I cannot wait to hear from John. Our guest today is one of my favorites.
It's going to be great.
Right. I just got to know him in the last couple of years when he came out with Fireproof, working with Mike Morris for decades. He's now our EOS coach. So this guy, special guy who has been able to dig deep into the operations of a plaintiff's firm in particular, but I think lessons to be learned by all of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm looking at my list of all the questions that I have prepared to ask him. I don't think I'm going to get to 10%. I have a feeling that he's the kind of guy that we can have on the show, every other week for the next year and still barely scratch the surface. And so having read Fireproof, having read other things that he's put out there, anticipating being able to interact with him is going to be great. I'm happy. We've got some new hires joining our firm. I think things are starting to look up for us on that swing. I know we talked about it on some prior shows. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break? We're going to hear something from the Chris people, right, about their upcoming conference. And when we come back, we're going to have John here from Fireproof, and everybody wins here at the Law Firm Brooklyn. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. We'll be right, folks. I'm rushing because I can't wait to get John up on the screen. We'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with you here on the Law Firm Blueprint.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited, Jay and I, to have with us John Nachazel, one of the great firm administrator, the driving force behind Fireproof and the Mike Morris Law Firm. Welcome.
It is great to be here. Great to be back with you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, look, the reason I wanted you here is we've rebranded as Law Firm Blueprint, and Jay is known as Mr. Systems. And I wanted you guys to be able to come together and geek out. We're going to talk about Fireproof and its involvement in the National Trial Lawyers Business of Law Seminar in Arizona a little bit. But wanted to get some time with you here. We have an audience made up of small and mid-sized law firms. And not all of us have the DNA of systems first. A lot of us I had the entrepreneurial bug. So I was like, hey, try this. If it works, we'll do more. And that, for a lot of people listening, the thought of putting systems in place is scary because there's so many things that need to be systematized. What I'd love you guys to start with is discussing, where do you get the most bang for the buck? Where's the low-hanging fruit that you might want to go to first? Because you think about everything at once, it's overwhelming. But where do you see, as you've now coached dozens of law firms, the greatest impact the quickest?
So I'll jump in and go first. I think that the scariest and most logical place to start for putting in a system is intake. I think that for every law firm, it's natural that's what the owners, the visionary founders, that's what they care about. It's exciting to get involved in the marketing. Very many of them are drawn to that. And it's appalling when you start doing the math of when there is leakage in your intake, the amount of dollars that is costing your law firm. It's so scary and overwhelming that if I could only pick one to start with, that's the one I'd pick first.
Jay, I'm going to toss you in a second, but why do you think that is, in the sense that it is so important? And you're right, it's not the shiny, it's fundamental, it's people over and over again. But why do you think lawyers just have, and again, I've been guilty of it over the years. I've been good, I've been bad, I've been good. Why is it that lawyers don't naturally go there?
I think it's just the muscles that have been built. Lawyers are very creative problem solvers, and that's great. But it's easier, maybe it's more comfortable if you want to get more signups, I know what to do. I'll spend more on my digital marketing. I'll spend more on my TV advertising. I'll do whatever I can to generate more marketing leads into the system, when in fact, what you could do for far less dollars is to simply sign up a greater percentage of those calls or those contacts that are coming into your firm, that if you had a tight intake machine, you could save tens of thousands of dollars in marketing and still yield the same result. So it's just, but if that's not a muscle that you have developed over the years, is, wow, I'm excited about process. Let's get a really robust, rigorous process installed. That's not words that lawyers make, and it just doesn't come naturally to them, even if it is the best way to spend their dollars.
Well, and if I can jump in here, one of the things that I think happens a lot on the intake side, and why I think it's so important, is that, when people launch a practice, they're happy to get one new client a week. And then all of a sudden they're getting 3 calls or 10 calls. And as it starts to grow, you start to think of 2 things, right? You start to think of, number one, well, if they want me, they know how to find me, and I'm not going to do any follow-ups. And it's amazing how many people are in my mastermind group who have just made the subtle tweak of actually following up, sending out retainer agreements. I mean, we're on a criminal side in my group, and there are guys that are doing 0 follow-ups, firms that are doing 0 follow-ups at all, and just even having somebody follow up. But what they're doing is they're actually trusting some of their highest level stuff to their lowest paid employees. And some of these people have an incredible turnover in their reception and intake detailed gathering departments. And I think they avoid the systems because they're like, well, why should I teach somebody my systems if they're going to be gone in 6 months? My opinion is that's precisely why you need the system, is because then you can plug and play. And then as you add people, you're ready to go. What are your thoughts about, investing in your intake people as you build the systems?
So I think if they understand the why you're doing the things, it goes a long way towards them accepting the process. And I haven't met somebody yet that has shown up and says, I'd like to do a really bad job today. I'd like to not make a difference. So I think if you explain to people, here's what we need you to do, here's why it's so important and how you're having an impact, they'll understand why this task that you're asking to be completed, why it should be done, and they'll adopt it with much greater success. So I think that's part of it. And I think that, there's 2 different things. One is, if you're having turnover every 6 months, what's going on? There's some other cultural problem that has nothing to do with your process. And yes, it's great to have process in order to serve as the basis for a great training program, and having a process is great so that you can know what metrics to put in place to ensure that you can audit things to ensure that everything is in fact being implemented the way you want. But it's a little bit scary to hear that there's chronic turnover. I'm not saying it's always going to be perfect, and we've had plenty of turnover in our intake team, but Tony's been with us as our intake lawyer for 12 years. Laura is an intake attorney. She's been with us for 8 or 9 years. We have others with similar long tenures. So I think too often intake is it's a burnout job. It's here's how I enter the firm, and as soon as I'm good, I will be promoted out of intake. And that is nails on a chalkboard to me. The most important thing that happens at your law firm, amongst the most important, I'll back off so we don't get anybody
upset some lawyers out there.
Yeah. Amongst the most important things is your intake. Why on earth would anybody ever be promoted out of the most important area? It is a reward. It is a huge vote of confidence to be trusted with the incredibly important task.
John, let me go there, because look, yeah. I know we're leaving systems for saying now we're dealing with like personnel.
Sure.
And to me, intake, it's one thing to be able to get the phone to ring, but if you're not monetizing it, whether it be contingency or fee for service like Jay, my question to you is, it's something that we have struggled with. First, a burnout effect, just the idea that you're dealing with all sorts of needy people with high stress potentially. So part of hiring the right people for it. I get that.
Yes.
But the idea that, are there people that, and again, my journey was that we started with recent grads that were young, energetic, that we knew had a 2-year cycle with management layered on top of them versus career people that might not be as, what's your feeling on filling that? And now post-COVID, we have a third where we have an international team to sort of help triage our, and funnel back down to our top people. What are your thoughts on, is this a lifer job? Is it something that should be played shorter term, et cetera?
Fantastic question. We have tried all three. We have a bit of all three going on right now. We have a large firm, so we have a lot of calls. So we have internationals, we have lifers, and we have newer people. Always when we hire a newer person now, we are not looking at it as, I want you for 2 years and then I'll rotate you out because you're going to burn out. What we try to do a good job of, we don't always get it right, but what we try for is to find that lifer. We don't want someone who's using it as a stair step. We want, and to my surprise, there are people that never burn out on it. I'm a natural introvert. I couldn't imagine talking to clients all day long, every day, and have a series of 5 to 15-minute phone calls all day. I couldn't imagine anything worse. Now, contrast that with the intake people and ask them, would they be interested in my job? They couldn't stand it. And I think that's the whole beauty of it, is that if you have someone that's burning out in the job, then you're asking them to do something that they're not a natural fit for.
Well, and so have you found any testing, any personality traits that will not just say they'd be good at it, because we have people that are great at it, but they don't want to do it for more than 2 years, versus, is it a situation, we joke about this a lot, like with schools that people go to, don't aim too high. Are there certain ones where the person might be amazing, but they're really a salesperson that's going to want a commission track at some point away from your world versus, somebody who will stay with you in the law firm ethos?
I would say, we use behavioral testing. We happen to use the preview when we test people and as part of our hiring assessment. I would say it's really the people who can genuinely empathize with somebody else. It's really someone who puts self or others above self, and that they can really get caught up in the emotion of what that person is going through, as opposed to, this is just a number, this is call number 14, and I've had
and to that end, John, with all your data, all your successes and failures within the firm, are there any benchmarks on particular tests that you're like, hey, this has worked more often than not, or is it a constantly evolving? I'm trying to move from gut to, if you're on this test and you score over this number, all of the people, a cool exercise would be to find the top firms in the country that have 20-year intake departments, and find out people who make it more than 5 years, and then get them all tested and figure out, could we come up with something that would sort of, at least,
that sounds like a research project for Blue Shark Digital, since they have so many connections. It'd be interesting to see if we can get that done.
It does. I would trust Blue Shark with that for sure. Love Blue Shark. But the point, or where I was going to go, was what we do right now, and I'm not trying to evade your question.
No. It's just great.
It's a great thing to figure out, is we have, our test happens to score people on 10 different traits. And so what we did was we took our star performers like Tony and Laura, and we had them take the test, and that set the benchmark. And so there's a scale of 1 to 10, introvert to extrovert, or independent, submissive, whatever. It's and it's really that combination of how good of a fit are you. So it's not any one of those traits, but what I find fascinating about your question is there is one of those traits that's more important than the other 9. And I haven't looked at it that way, to be full disclosure. I've only looked at it as this is the best overall fit. You look like, you scored like other people that are successful in this role. And we start with them.
Well, I mean, and think about that. I mean, you can have a starting quarterback in the NFL who, who is running a 5-second 40, but everything else works. And you know what? That's I don't think he's Tom Brady, but you get somebody who can perform at an exceptionally high level, even though they can't necessarily, blow people off the starting blocks when it comes to running. So, I mean, when you look in the aggregate, I think that's what you're looking for with these people. But John, let me ask you a question a little bit more. When it comes to intake, because I'm fascinated by the intake process. We spend a lot of time working on that. And I don't want to get away from systems, but when it comes to intake, are there particular KPIs that you say are non-negotiable KPIs that's, because one of the problems is that as lawyers, we have a tendency to say, okay, we're going to look at absolutely everything. But I think as business people, as entrepreneurs, we can maybe find 3 things that matter, or maybe even one thing that truly matters, and focus on that KPI. Are on intake, have you found things that actually matter to your team? And what are those?
The one that I care about, not exclusively, but just about exclusively, is the signed percent of wanted leads. So that's the ultimate measure for me. Someone will say, okay, well, this person had a fantastic week because they had 7 signups, and that was better than this other person who had only 4. Well, maybe. Depends on the calls that were funneled to that person. How many, you think about in baseball, how many at bats, that matters a lot. And so one of the things that I like to point out when I talk about this is, who's the all-time career hits leader? Well, it's Pete Rose. Who has the all-time highest batting average? It's Ty Cobb. Okay, those matter. Who has the all-time career record for most at bats? Who cares? Nobody knows that answer. It might be Pete Rose, but it doesn't matter. It's what did you do when you got to the plate? And of those good at bats, of the ones that were desirable, how many times did I get a hit?
Well,
so
okay,
as to get it signed.
All right, so I looked it up.
Well, I'm going to go take this one step further. So, as a disgruntled Yankee fan at the moment, we're in a big slump at the time that we're talking to you. There's, I think, another stat, which is it's great to have a high batting average regular season, but when it gets to the playoffs, when you have the catastrophic case and you're in the series, are you A-Rod or are you Jeter? And so so it's one thing if you can hit off of Kansas City pitching, but when you're in the playoffs against the top 2-3 teams of the year and have their aces night after night, can you hit those? Versus, great, you were able to sign up the slip and fall and the fender bender, but when it really matters, and the person is talking to 3 other firms and you're fighting for that, how do you do there?
Right.
And that goes back to, I hate to make another sports metaphor, but it's, good in the living room. It's those college coaches that can come in and sell the parents in the living room that get the premier players on their squads, basketball, football, whatever.
Well, right. But I mean, it's not the total number. They can go to 20 living rooms, but there's 2 that really matter that are going to make or break their next 4 years.
Just interestingly enough, Pete Rose is the all-time at-bat leader with over 14,000 at-bats. Second is Hank Aaron with over 12,000 at-bats. So there you go. I mean, that gets you the most hits if you have the most opportunities for hits, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly helps. But the point of it is you want to have over 90%. I've heard 92.5, maybe 95. Some people claim 98% success rate of getting those cases or those leads that they wanted actually signed. That's what's critical. And to your point earlier, Jay, is that doesn't just happen out of magic or a person tries hard. There's a process. It is the result of a deliberate process where you can drive those results by adopting best practices and ensuring that they're routinely
one
followed.
caveat I'm going to send out there, because I also look, I'm putting myself back in the shoes of somebody 10 years ago, 15 years ago watching this.
Sure.
Is that your percentage off a marketing ad where somebody calls a single place, when we get marketed, through SEO or PPC, that number is actually higher, and you can do those high numbers. The craziest part I have found is referral work, where a law firm in town sends us. The odds are they're going to send it to 2 other legitimate outfits, and that you're battling, not, are they hiring me, based on my personality and perseverance, but there's a jump ball with other legit places, and that your numbers will vary if you're in a referral-based business versus a direct marketing business.
Seth, you bring that up, and I'm curious how John has seen that. What we have found is that lawyers in the, I guess you would say, over 50 range, now that I'm over 50, have a tendency when they give out referrals to give 2 or 3 names. But what we're finding is that younger lawyers in the late 20s, 30s, they're just giving 1 name. They're not giving. It feels to me like there's some sort of shift in the paradigm of old school. I think it maybe goes back to there are fewer younger lawyers participating in bar associations and that type of thing. It's less of a fraternity, sorority of lawyers. But what we're finding is when we're getting referrals from younger lawyers, it's coming. They're saying you're the only name they gave me, and I'm curious if you guys have seen that as well, because I think there's a shift that's coming in the overall in the way referrals are generated.
So it's interesting. We tend to refer more out than we are lucky enough to have come in. And when we refer them out, we'll only send it to 1 lawyer at a time. So we'll send it to a lawyer. We'll chase them for their decision. Do they accept it or reject it? And if they reject it, we might try to re-refer it to someone else, but we try to only have 1 ball in the air at a time. And then as far as them coming in, I haven't heard this pain point that there's multiple, that we lost it to another attorney. So I'm going to be optimistic and say that we probably are getting.
Again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I was talking about inbound referrals where you're getting it from other highfalutin sources that I was shocked that our percentage would drop compared to marketing where they don't know us, but for the touch points we put online, that the close rate was significantly greater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only meaningful difference that I've seen is actually from lead generation companies where, if somebody searches for, and we don't use lead gen for what it's worth, we just haven't, but if somebody is searching for Mike Morse and they call Mike Morse, then we've got a really good chance of getting them signed because they asked for us. But if they respond to some generic wording or ad, and then we say, hi, we're Mike Morse, well, they've already heard of us and they chose not to call us in the first place. So our likelihood of landing them is probably going to be less.
Well, look, in our remaining moments, I'm going to come back to, I don't want to call it a speed round, but no argument intake there. What are some of the sort of other areas that you and I want Jay to sort of share as well, where you say with you have a lot of fires to put out as an entrepreneurial lawyer, and what are some of the places you say, hey, if you put a little bit of time here, you see great bang for the buck?
So I would say one of it is I think it's understanding your capacity at your factory. So in pre-litigation and litigation. So typically litigation, if you're willing to litigate and take it that far, you're probably going to get more value in most cases. What is your capacity in litigation? And I think most people's knee-jerk reaction would be, oh, they're overwhelmed, they're busy, they're full. Well, is that data or is that emotion, or what is it that's causing you to say that? Has your capacity gone up or is it down? Are you at 80%? Are you at 140? And I think trying to find numbers where you can determine, here is my capacity and here's where I am, would be really enlightening to people. And then you can start to steer the ship, and you can understand where, you've got spigots. How many lawsuits can my factory handle this week? How many can I let flow from pre-lit into lit? How many cases can I sign up out of intake into pre-lit? How many marketing leads do I need to drive? So how much money should I spend on marketing is going to drive the number of leads, which is going to drive the amount going into pre-lit. And I would just say, don't let life just happen to you, but actually have that data, have a dashboard that tells you what your capacity is in each area, so that you can be adjusting the spigots and allowing the flow to happen and fill all of the wasted capacity.
Jay, how about you? What are some of your favorite ways? You speak to a lot of people on the smaller side, firm-wise. Where do you see bang for your buck?
So I mean, for me, when it comes down to bang for your buck, what I think a lot of people start to realize as they scale is that they finally have dollars that they can put into digital marketing, and they abandon the traditional ways that lawyers get cases. And that's through having relationships and that type of thing. If people were to take 10% of what they're spending on digital and spend that on their referral based business, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for Mike Morse's firm, but I can tell you that my best cases historically over the last 25 years have been cases that were referred to me. They are the highest paying, the easiest to close, the clients that were easiest to work with, the best revenue, and some of the most challenging cases that actually gave intellectual satisfaction to us as criminal defense lawyers here at my firm. And I think that a lot of people start off looking for referrals, and then they quickly exit that and say, I'm just going to throw all my money into digital marketing. But I think that it's in today's legal economy, you are missing out on a great opportunity to actually have a system in place for developing those referrals rather than just letting them happen by happenstance. That's my thought.
And Seth, I want to jump in with a supplement to what I'd said, and that is another bang for the buck is, in my mind, it's no bucks, and you can get bang. You can increase your speed by filing the lawsuit sooner, because the clock starts ticking as soon as you can get the case into litigation. You can force it to its end point. But if your average time to file suit is 200 days rather than 150, you've just wasted time. And for no cost, you can just do that same work sooner and get that clock started earlier, and you can get your speed improved.
This is awesome, guys. I know we could go on forever with this, and we will. We'll definitely have you back. Wanted to spend a few moments, John. It sounds like an awesome joint venture between Fireproof, National Trial Lawyers, Business of Law Conference coming up in Arizona this November.
It is. It's November 13th through the 15th. The first day is a National Trial Lawyers New Business of Law Conference. It's at the JW Marriott Camelback Inn and Resort and Spa in Scottsdale.
We'll get links up to it, so you don't have to remember what you said. But basically, if you want to see John and other legendary players,
the lineup of speakers is amazing.
Who focus on the business of law. This is the guys that bring you NTL in Miami are creating a day in Arizona, November. First day is more traditional NTL business of law. Second day, how to fireproof your firm. Two for one. Who doesn't want to be in Arizona in November?
That's exactly right. And we're very excited to have our very own Fireproof Day. Mike and I will both be speaking on day one as well, but we get day two, and it's going to be a fabulous time. I hope to see everybody there.
Yeah,
I do have another.
We might even get Jay Ruane.
Maybe.
Nice.
We'll see. I'd like to do it.
As an introvert, it's not my thing, but I'm also going to another conference in September 28th through the 30th. It's the Brain Trust Marketing and Management Summit.
It's going to be.
I've heard great things about that. As my kids age up, I'm going to be able to start taking them on some of these trips with me and go to many more seminars.
I've been blessed. I've taken my middle guy to a bunch of conferences, and he's seen more concerts as before the age of 10 than most people do in their 20s. So it's been a lot of fun.
The Brain Trust one is in Vegas, Jay, and you just strike me as a Vegas guy. So I'm just.
How would you? I'm definitely a Vegas guy. My best friend lives in LA. It's a great place for us to meet. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John. This has been awesome, and we will see you in Vegas at Daryl's Mastermind Brain Trust, and we'll hopefully see you at NTL in Arizona. But we'll have you back because what Jay has tapped into in our herd. You've just sort of lived and breathed and put together in the plaintiff's practice at just a PhD level. So thank you so much for making the time today.
I'd love to have you back on to talk about, okay, once you have a firing intake team, what are the systems that you need to get it installed next?
That'll be part two.
It's a never ending journey, but there are things that you can get the best bang from. And I think that should be a conversation we can have.
It's never ending. I love being with you guys. So invite me back anytime. And we've made every mistake, at least that we can think of. So we'd love to pass it on so others don't have to.
Awesome.
Jake, take us out.
Much, John.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you want to take us out?
Yeah. All right, folks. So that's going to do it for here this week on the Law Firm Blueprint. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, you can catch us every week live, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, here on our Facebook group, or follow us anywhere that you catch podcasts. Look for the Law Firm Blueprint. Bye for now.